the purpose of this activity that we're going to do together is to help us review the elements of art. Every single one of these sections is intended to represent one of the elements of art. Here we have line, shape, texture, value. Obviously we have color in the middle. This is called form, meaning it looks three-dimensional. This is called space. It's got foreground, middle ground, and background. All right, so here we have this blank form, and we're going to start off together, and we're going to review the element color. But also, I'm going to teach you some tips about production quality and craftsmanship when it comes to using your color pencils and your pencil and your Sharpie markers. Step one is I want you to take out blue and your regular red, which is the darker of the two red pencils, and yellow. Does anybody know why I asked you to take out these three? Why? Just call it out. Right, these are the primary colors, okay? They're the primary colors because when it comes to pigment on the color wheel, they make all the other colors, right? If you have really good paints, they do a nice job of that. And also, you can think of it like this. You cannot mix two colors to get red, you cannot mix two colors to get yellow, and you cannot mix two colors to get blue, right? That's what makes them primary. Now, in a second, we're going to do these three main circles, the primary colors, and we'll do red at the top. But before we do that, I want to take a second, I'm going to turn my paper over, and I want to show you some tips, okay, about coloring. Now, one thing that we sometimes do is we scribble, right? Or we press really hard and we scribble. Now, scribbling is not terrible. It's kind of fun. And sometimes it looks really cool and expressive too, right? But if you want to color us in a smooth way and not get scribbling, here's the way to do that, okay? So if I hold my pencil not down low like I'm doing my math homework, but up high, loose and relaxed, I can just touch it to the paper, and I'll barely touch the paper and just do these gentle overlapping circular motions, okay? And this is called feather tipping. And I'm not pressing hard just yet. I'm just getting that initial level of tone down. But it looks kind of smooth and nice, right? And I can also now grip my pencil or press harder to build up the tone if I want it to become darker and darker and darker. Right? Now, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't really do feather tipping much. I usually go like this. It's kind of like scribbling in a way. I go fast side to side, but I take my time and I move slowly, moving upward and downward. So I'm going fast, but then slowly moving down. If I go too fast, I can slowly push back up and then back down. See? And this is another way of getting it on there kind of smooth. Now, if this happens to you where you did pretty good, but it's kind of directional, right? It's not scribbly, but it's directional, and you don't want that. You want it to be smoother. One little tip is to angle a different direction. So I angle this way, turn my paper angle this way, or go the opposite way. So when you change your angle and float over it, it's a way of softening the directional strokes of your coloring, okay? All right, so now I'm going to turn this over, and we're going to focus on this top circle, red, but I want to give you another tip, and this is related to coloring in the lines. Now, coloring in the lines, I'm not saying you have to color in the lines your whole life. Plenty of reasons not to stay in the lines, right? But if you want to stay in the lines, you want to know how, right? So that's what we're talking about. So first of all, if I want to color this circle in the lines, which I do, one thing that could give me trouble is if I start in the middle and I push out to the edge, half the time we accidentally overshoot the edge, right? And we go outside the lines. So my technique is to carefully start at the edge and then pull inward toward the middle, you see? And then I'll turn my paper a little bit, start at the edge, and then pull inward toward the middle. And doing my feather tipping techniques, you guys can start. And I'm only doing my initial level of tone. I'm not trying to press super hard and make it solid red just yet. But it's just a lot easier to start at the edge cleanly and then pull away from it with your pencil. And this is a good drawing technique in general, especially if you get into drawing realistically and you're trying to do some shading and things of that nature where the edges of your shading really matter because they determine the corners of light and shadow. And you want it to be clean and easy to read visibly with plenty of clarity. You have to learn how to establish an edge and then shade away from it, okay? So that's my first go around, and now I'm gonna come back at it and I'm gonna start building up my hand pressure and try to make it look a little bit more solid red. The pencil's a little dull, but I'm gonna keep going here. And my goal is to try to make the circle look as even as possible and nice and vibrant. Looking for the weak spots and giving them attention. Okay. It's pretty good. I'll zoom out a little bit. All right, so for the remaining primaries down on my lower right, I'm gonna go to my yellow, and it's the same approach. In fact, though, yellow's a little bit more forgiving in terms of it looking sloppy or splotchy. So I'll go do that one pretty quickly. But I'm still starting at my edge and then pulling away from the edge. There we go. Okay, so I think yellow's pretty good there. And then I'll switch to my blue, and we're gonna go here. Now, technically, it doesn't really matter which one is which. I like to start with red as out of habit. If you look at the color wheel in the classroom on the wall back here, the very top has yellow, right, instead of red. So it doesn't really matter. But where they are will determine what is in all of these other circles precisely, which we'll review in just a moment. All right, almost done with my blue here. Now I'm just looking for kind of weak spots and splotchy spots. Just trying to even it out best I can. All right. So these are the primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. So one interesting thing about these primary colors, you guys, is when you mix all three primary colors together, they neutralize. And that's what happens when you mix the right recipe of red, blue, and yellow. You're going to get some sort of gray or dark gray or maybe even black. The other thing, though, is when you mix two primary colors, you get what we call a secondary color. Do we know the secondary colors? Orange, green, purple, or in the color theory world, we would call that violet, right? We kind of use that interchangeably. So we're going to make our secondary color. So we have our orange color pencil, and this circle, the medium circle right between red and yellow, is going to be orange. And the other interesting thing is orange is exactly opposite of blue. And what that means is blue and orange are opposite colors on the color wheel. They are complementary. Complementary means colors that are opposite on the color wheel. They contrast each other. They cannot be any more different than they are. And what that implies is that when you put them side by side, they actually look really nicely together. Orange and blue, they stand out. They pair well together. And you could think about the Chicago Bears as being orange and blue. The Miami Dolphins kind of are orange and blue. And all complementary color sets work that way. Blue and yellow, what does that make? Green. Green is opposite of red, right? And red and green, they're really great holiday colors, aren't they? We see them around the holidays in the wintertime, and they pair well together. And then we have yellow with the green. If you're wondering which green to use, we're using the darker of these two. And you could read the label. The darker one actually says green, where the lighter one says yellow-green. So use the one that says green, and it's the darker of the two. Red and green pair well together, and yellow and violet go well together. Yellow and violet you could think of as Minnesota Vikings, the football team. Now, what's interesting about complementary colors is they do pair well together, but when you mix them with one another, they actually do the opposite. They dull each other, right? So if I pair green with red, I put a little bit of green in the red, it'll make it more like a duller red, like a maroonish red. If I put a little bit of red with green, it'll look like a army green, kind of a duller green. Same with orange and blue. Same with yellow and violet. If I want to dull down violet, I add yellow. It sounds a little weird, doesn't it? But it's the truth. The reason it's true is, what did we say earlier about mixing the primary colors? What do? They neutralize, right? Look at red and green. What is green made of again? Blue and yellow. So if I mix red and green, it's like mixing red with the other two primary colors, and they neutralize. So that's why they dull when you mix complementary colors. Bless you. Okay, so now we have the primary colors and the secondary colors, and these little circles that we have left, they represent what happens when you mix a primary and a secondary. The vocabulary word for that is either tertiary colors or intermediate colors. You could say either one. But what's interesting about these is the way that they're named. If I mix red and orange together, it will always be called red-orange. It'll never be called orange-red. It's not supposed to, at least. You always say the primary color first. So we have red-orange. Here we have yellow-orange, yellow-green, blue-green, blue-violet, and red violet. Now, a lot of times we make up names for them, like the Crayola companies. They have names like turquoise. Turquoise is called that because that's the color of a stone that is blue-green in color, right? So we call that turquoise. Or we have a color pencil here called raspberry, okay? And raspberry is not a color, it's a fruit, right? But this is great for red violet, okay? So we're going to do our intermediate colors with the pencils that we have first. So we have one here called yellow green. So that fits perfectly between green and yellow. So let's do that one. And these are going to go a lot faster because the circles are so much smaller. And as I mentioned, we have this raspberry red violet color. It goes perfectly as our red violet. And then we also have the red orange. It's the lighter of the two reds that we have in our box. So it's actually red orange. We'll use that in our red orange spot. Now, to my eye, I think the red orange looks a little too red compared to orange. Would you guys agree? So if that bothers you, all you have to do is take orange and just orangify it a little bit more. Sort of mix some orange into it, and I think that looks a little bit more red-orange to me. Additionally, we have these pencils available in the drawers. The label reads green-blue. They're actually blue-green, but you can come up to the drawer and borrow one and then return it when you're finished. But this one here is great for our blue-green spot. Okay, so that actually leaves us with these two empty circles, and in this class, we don't have perfect color pencils for those. So let's do a little mixing. So let's take our yellow and our orange. It's gonna help us make some yellow-orange. And the best way to do this is I take the darker of the two, which is orange, and I'm gonna do a light, gentle tone of orange first. Not pressing hard, I'm just doing an even, gentle tone. And then I come back over the top of that with really good hand pressure with the yellow. And it's going to mix them together. Pressing nice and hard there. And that's my yellow-orange. And then the same is true to a degree with blue and violet. They're about the same in value. So I would do one first, just do an even tone. And then when you do the other one, also do an even tone over top of it. Don't press way too hard. Give them about the same equal pressure. And this one, I'm more building up the colors together. And I'm constantly evaluating it. So what that means is I look at it, and if it looks too blue, I'll go over it with purple. If it looks too purple, I'll go back over it with blue, and so on and so forth. And eventually, it should get to the point where the answer is neither. It looks right in between blue and violet. I think this looks pretty good here. So that's going to be my blue-violet on the color wheel. So to review our element of color, we have our primary colors, red, blue, and yellow. When you mix two primaries together, you get secondary colors, orange, green, and violet. And then whenever you mix a primary and a secondary color together, you get intermediate colors or tertiary colors. And you always say the primary color first. Red orange, yellow green, blue violet, and red violet.